Everybody loves a road trip, but how long will it take to get from point A to point B? That's what this program was written to find out. So, I've put in a comment about the program under my shebang, and it reads, "This program estimates the amount of time to complete a trip, given the distance and average rate of speed. We wish to show the time in hours and minutes. The modulus function is used to determine the distance traveled in the extra minutes." So, we come down and we simply display out the name of the program and the first prompt. How far will you travel? 0 to quit. I then use the chomp function to get my input. Standard in gets input from the keyboard or the default input stream, and it stores it into the variable distance, but it has that extra carriage return at the end. Chomp takes off the carriage return, and so we're left with whatever data the user keys in from the keyboard. Then I go into a while loop. While distance is greater than 0. This allows us to run the program over and over again, computing the time of various trips. We know the distance, so our next task is to get the rate of speed. And that's what this code does. We'll print out the prompt, what is your average speed, and then accept it from the keyboard and extract any carriage return at the end. Our next task is to determine the extra minutes by first determining the distance traveled during that time. The undefined variable, that's your $_ is used to temporarily store that time. And so this line performs that task. We say the undefined variable is equal to distance modulus speed. Now let's assume for a minute we didn't have modulus there, we had divide. If it was distance divided by speed, we would take a quotient and store it into the undefined variable. And we might get something like 5.2. But what we really want here is the remainder, the 0.2. So, rather than divide, I perform a modulus function. The remainder is stored into my undefined variable. Next, we determine the extra minutes it took to travel that speed. And that's a two-step process. We first convert the speed from miles per hour to miles per minute. Since there's 60 minutes per mile, we divide the speed by 60. Second, we multiply the speed in miles per minute by the remaining minutes. So, my line, minutes equals speed divided by 60 times the undefined variable, will tell us how long it will take to drive that extra distance. So our next step is to determine the number of hours by dividing the distance by the rate of speed in miles per hour. The integer function is used to ignore the remainder. We've already taken care of the remainder. Now we want to know how many hours. So we have hours equals the integer function of distance divided by speed. So then we show the time estimate. Now what I'm doing here in this print statement is concatenation. I'm building a big character string. The pink parts are string literals, carriage returns, spaces, characters that I want to print. the periods are actually concatenation operators that add on to the end of the previous string. And so to the end of traveling, we will add the character string representation of distance. And to the end of that, we will tack on miles at, and so on until we get our entire message put together. And then we display it to the screen, and we're done. We have an estimate of how much time is involved in a single trip. But remember, we have a while loop here, so I have to get ready to do another trip or to get input to quit the program. So again, I display out how far will you travel, 0 to quit, and use the chomp function to get that input into distance. Let's see how this program runs. We'll go to the terminal and type in Perl trip. That's what I call the program. How far will you travel? Well, let's say we are going to travel 300 miles at 60 miles per hour. It will take 5 hours and 0 minutes. Well, there's no remainder. 60 goes into 305 times, so okay, that seems pretty good. Let's go 400 miles at 70 miles per hour. It will take us 5 hours and 58 we'll call it 0.3 minutes. Okay? What if I go 100 miles at 30 miles an hour? Well, it'll take 3 hours and 5 minutes. To quit, I just enter my 0 and return, and we're done. So, our program works. We've seen in this podcast, hopefully, the value of internal documentation, and we've learned how to use the modulus function. We've looked at concatenation and the integer function. And I think we've done pretty well. Pat yourself on the back.